What I am about to tell you drips into my mind even now, and there has never been an explanation that feels right. There has never been a theory that settles my thoughts. This strangest thing that has ever happened to me, or to anyone I personally know. And though time has passed, it has not left me. I work late hours at a dive bar about 30 minutes from my house. It is not by choice. It is simply how things are when you live out in a rural stretch where the world feels far away. There are not many jobs close to home, and you take what you can get. The bar itself is nothing to look at, nothing fancy, but the work is steady, and most nights slide by without much happening at all. The night this unfolded was no different. At first, my shift came and went like a shadow passing over water, and after I locked the place up, I climbed into my car and began the drive home. Most of the road between the bar and my house is made up of winding back roads. Roads that coil and twist through woods and farmland and are lit by almost nothing. There is rarely traffic, rarely even a single pair of headlights to keep you company. Only long stretches of curves carved through the dark, quiet land. I have always liked it for that reason. It feels like a built-in detox, a time when I can let my mind drift or think about the characters I met at the bar and the strange little things they told me. But not long into that drive, I noticed something was wrong. There was an unusual fog creeping over the road. I have driven that route more times than I can count, but that night the visibility was worse than I had ever seen. I eased off the gas because the fog smothered everything ahead of me. Even my brights only made it worse, casting a glowing wall of white that seemed to close me, and it was maddening because I was tired, and it meant I would be crawling home when all I wanted was my bed. It was about halfway through the drive when I saw it through the fog just to the right side of the road, a faint yellow blinking light. At first I thought it was a reflector or maybe some roadside marker, but as I drove it, neither came closer nor drifted away. It stayed locked in place, matching my pace, hidden deeper in the fog, blinking with the same steady rhythm. The way it hung there began to unnerve me, because the fog played tricks on my sense of depth. I could not tell if it was 20 feet away or 200. Another minute passed, and that strange yellow pulse had not changed its position. I began to feel something building in my stomach, a twisting unease. I slowed down, thinking maybe the light would move ahead or behind or vanish altogether. But as I eased almost to a crawl, it held its ground, blinking in the exact same rhythm and still perfectly parallel to me. It was as if something unseen was moving alongside my car, keeping pace no matter what speed I chose. That was when the unease slid into fear. I decided to stop entirely to see what would happen. And sure enough, the light stopped too, still blinking at that same maddening rhythm. I sat frozen, wondering whether to turn around or keep going. And then it changed. The blink remained, but the light itself grew stronger, with each pulse brightening like a small flame, catching the wind. It was not blinking faster. It was burning hotter with each rhythm, as if whatever it was had suddenly awakened. I knew I could not stay there waiting for it to come closer. My hand went to the gear shift to reverse, but that was when I realized the engine was off, and the silence was total. Key had never been turned. I knew that, with absolute certainty, yet the car was dead beneath me. My hands began to tremble, and they never tremble. I pour drinks all day, my hands cannot afford to shake. But there I was, trying the ignition again and again with nothing but dead clicks and that yellow light outside my window pulsing brighter and brighter. My thoughts began to spiral, the idea that the thing out there was somehow feeding on the car, feeding on me. I grabbed for my phone, hoping to get a picture or call someone, but the screen stayed black. I had checked it at the bar. It had 20% left, but now it was a lifeless block in my hand. And then the light outside surged into a blinding explosion, like a star tearing open. I could not look at it. I shielded my face, my eyes squeezed shut, and for at least 10 seconds I felt its heat, its weight, its presence, and then it was gone. The fog was still there, pressing against the glass, but the light had vanished. My heart still hammered in my chest, but when I turned the key, the engine roared to life as if nothing had happened. I drove home without looking anywhere but the road, afraid that even one glance into that fog might bring it back. It never returned, but the memory did, and it has never left me. I told my family, my friends, even some of the regulars at the bar, and they all offered theories, but none that sat right in my bones. The next thing I am about to tell you happened a couple of years back, and it still sits in my chest like a stone. I am a long-haul truck driver, and I have been in this line of work for years. So I am used to the long stretches of nothing. I have driven through every kind of night, from the empty desert to the silent forests, and I know the feeling of being the only living thing on the road. This particular night, I was on my second to last delivery of a cross-state loop, just pushing through so I could make it home and sleep. The route had me cutting across one of those desert highways that see almost no traffic at night, miles and miles, without a town, without a gas station, without even a single streetlight, just the hum of tires on asphalt and the cold glitter of stars hanging above. I was about an hour from my next drop-off when I first noticed it in the mirror, at the edge of the beam of my taillights. A dark SUV, trailing me, not close enough to be aggressive, but always there, matching my speed. Whether I slowed down or sped up, it kept the same measured distance. 40 minutes went by like that, the black shape always there, never gaining, never falling back, and never trying to pass. At first, I thought maybe it was just a cautious driver, someone nervous about passing a semi at night, but I passed through several clear passing zones and they never made a move. That was when the back of my mind began to itch. I forced myself to focus on the road ahead, but every few minutes my eyes would betray me and flick to the mirrors, and there it would be, still there, still following. Around 2 in the morning, I decided to pull into a roadside rest area, not a proper truck stop, just a dirt lot with a few faded spaces and a small shed holding a couple of vending machines. A single bulb flickered weakly above them, casting long shadows. I figured I would stretch my legs, maybe grab a soda, and more importantly, let whoever was behind me go on their way. But when I looked up before shutting off the engine, I saw the SUV pull into parking far off in the corner of the lot. The confusion in my chest curdled into anger. I stepped down from the cab with heavy, deliberate steps, ready to demand answers, but before I could get close, their engine roared to life, and they shot out of the lot, kicking up dust and gravel, their taillights shrinking fast into the dark. Part of me felt relieved, but another part knew with cold certainty that they had been following me for a reason, and that reason could not have been good. I checked the vending machines only to find them empty and useless, then returned to the cab, feeling my exhaustion double over me. I decided to rest just for an hour or two before finishing the drive. I did a quick walk around the rig, making sure the cargo doors were locked. Before settling back in the cab, I reclined the seat, cracked the window, and let the silence of the lot seep in. I am a light sleeper out of necessity. Years of sleeping in places like this will do that. Maybe an hour after drifting off, I woke to the faint crunch of footsteps on gravel, stayed still, and opened the corner of the blind. And there they were, 2 figures crouched near my trailer doors, inspecting the locks. One of them used a small flashlight to signal the other, and then from a bag, he pulled a pair of bolt cutters. My hand slammed onto the horn without thinking, and the blast tore through the night. They jumped like they had been shocked and ran toward the brush, and that was when the SUV reappeared, lights off, moving fast before disappearing again. I called the police, who told me to stay put until they arrived, and when they did, we found fresh pry marks on the lower latch of the trailer, but nothing had been stolen. The officers told me this was common along that stretch of highway, cargo thieves following for miles, waiting for the right moment. That night still comes back to me whenever I pull into an empty lot in the dark. There is something intoxicating about driving at night when the air is warm and the roads are empty and the machine beneath you feels alive. The wind rushes in through the open windows, and the highway stretches on with no one around. My father's BMW M3 made nights like that feel endless. And I was not reckless, but I did love the feeling of letting the car run the way it was meant to run. That night I had been cruising without a care, stereo off, just listening to the engine and the air. Then I felt an urge to leave the highway, to find the narrow, twisting roads where the car could stretch its legs differently. So I took the next exit and let the road lead me. Through a network of bends and tight corners, it was late. The streets were deserted, and I let the speed rise just enough to feel the tires bite into the pavement. Then I saw at a glint in the headlights and slammed the brakes, stopping just before hitting it, a shopping cart sitting dead center in the road. The way the light had caught it it looked like it appeared out of nowhere. I got out against my better judgment, the warm, buggy air pressing in, and the sound of the cooling engine behind me. The cart was empty. Nothing strange about it, and I turned back toward the car. That was when movement cut into the corner of my vision. Two dark figures broke from the farmland running straight toward me. My mind stuttered over what I was seeing, but instinct took over. I bolted into the car, hit the start button, and the engine came alive. One figure stopped a few feet away, but the other slammed into my passenger side door with a sickening thud. We locked eyes, and his gaze stripped away every ounce of courage I had. His clothes were torn, his hair wet and wild, his face smeared with dirt or blood, and his eyes were sharp and vacant at the same time. He grabbed the door handle, trying to wrench it open, and that was enough for me. I threw the car around the cart and tore down the road, heart hammering. I called the police as I drove, and they promised to send someone. But when I got home and looked at the car, there was more blood than I could have imagined, streaked across the door and mirror, and even dotting the rear panel, far too much blood for a simple collision. The next morning, my father saw it and lost his temper until I explained, though even then he stayed cold for a while. I never heard from the police again, but I knew in my bones it had been a trap set to lure someone out of their car. And that night, I had been the one who stumbled into it.